All right, so this picture is just a silly little picture showing you Peyer's patches. So Peyer's patches are in the walls of your small intestine, specifically in the ileum, okay? And what it means is when food gets absorbed through the wall of your small intestine, if there's any bacteria or anything in that food, it's going to basically come into contact with these Peyer's patches, and the lymphocytes inside the Peyer's patches may then mount an immune response if there's any bacteria or anything there. So it's like it's protecting, you against possible bacteria in the foods that you eat. That's what it looks like there. If you looked at it under the microscope, this is a cut through someone's small intestine. So they've taken the small intestine and they've done a transverse cut, and all of these purple things that you see here, those are Peyer's patches. They're just, they're just collections of lymphocytes, all right? If you haven't noticed, when a bunch of lymphocytes get together, whether it's here, or whether it's in the spleen, or whether it's in lymph nodes, they always kind of look the same. They look like these big purple circles that are maybe a little bit light on the inside. That's just what they kind of look like when they get together. Remember, lymphocytes, going back to the blood chapter, have these big purple nuclei. So when you get a bunch of them together, they tend to look like these big purple circles. All right, anyone know what this is? That's the thymus, okay? This thing around the outside would be what?
Capsule.
That's the capsule. What would you call each one of these little things that's inside of it?
Tubercle.
Those are lobules, thymic lobules. The connective tissue that divides the lobules is known as what? Trabeculae, all right? And then if you look at one lobule, if you look at this lobule, or you look at that lobule up there, every lobule has an outer part that's more darkly staining. That's the what? That's the cortex. And then the lighter part that's in the middle of the lobules is the medulla. Okay? Let me show you another slide here. So again, here is more thymus. So again, something like this, that would be a lobule. The part that's dark on the outside is the cortex. The lighter part on the inside is the medulla. Okay? Now, in terms of what other things you can see, and then again, this would be like a super duper close-up of some of the trabeculae that are dividing the thymus up. If you look inside the medulla parts, that's where you might find some of the thymic corpuscles or the Hassel's corpuscles. Those represent basically T cells that didn't graduate, that got destroyed. So I can see one right there, but it's kind of tough on this magnification. So you have to go up a little bit closer. I think I see one there. Let me go a little closer magnification. Okay. Here's a little bit closer magnification. You can see some of these little things that you see around in here. Those would be thymic globules. Let me go up still a little bit closer than that. Okay, there's a super duper close-up of one thymic globule. So this would be inside of the medulla of the thymus, and you'll see several of these thymic corpuscles, or you can call them Hassel's corpuscles, either way. Here's another one. Here's a couple of them together. Okay. Yeah, kind of look like, I guess they look sort of like a cut onion, but no one ever says that because I guess in A&P1 we already said that a Pacinian corpuscle looks like a cut onion, so I don't know. I think it looks like a cut onion. All right, moving right along. Here's a picture of a lymph node. Again, we don't have a lymph node model, so if I'm going to ask you about it, I'll have to use a picture similar to this, or I think the one from your textbook. Whoops, actually, you know what? I took it out. There is one in your textbook. Study this picture. What should you know about the lymph node structure? Well, first of all, surrounding the outside of the lymph node is a capsule, just like there is, made out of connective tissue. The outer part of the lymph node is the cortex. Inside the cortex is where you find what are called the cortical nodules, which are these round circles of lymphocytes. Again, they're going to look a lot like what you saw with Peyer's patches. They're going to look a lot like what you see in the spleen. But they're these big purple circles. Now, the thing that can be kind of confusing, so this would be one of the cortical nodules, but you can see sometimes they call it a follicle, or sometimes they call it a lymphatic follicle or a lymphatic nodule. Any of those words would be fine in terms of the lab practical. If you want to call it lymphatic nodule, knock yourself out. If you want to call it lymphatic follicle, that's fine by me. Inside every follicle, there's a lighter area known as the germinal center, where like the immune responses are actually taking place. What else can I say about this? So the cortex is where you're going to find the lymphatic nodules. The medulla is in the middle. You won't see the nodules in the medulla per se. You will see some lymphatic tissue there that's known as medullary cords, but they're not arranged into these like circles that you have in the cortex. Other things you should know: afferent lymphatic vessels are taking the lymphatic fluid into the lymph node, and then the efferent lymphatic vessels are taking it away. All right? There's usually a lot more afferent lymphatic vessels than there are efferent lymphatic vessels. So what does that mean about the flow of fluid when it's in there? Does it go fast or go slow? If you've got a lot of ways in but only a few ways out, how fast is the fluid going in there? Very slow, right? It's like a bottleneck on the highway. If all of a sudden you had a 4-lane highway and then you had signs that made you go down to 1 lane, that's kind of what's happening here. Lots of afferent lymphatic vessels, but usually only 1 or 2 efferent lymphatic vessels. The area where the efferent lymphatic vessels are attached is known as the hilum or the hilus. Either name's fine. Once again, you have connective tissues dividers that help organize the lymph node, just like you had with the thymus and just like you had with the spleen. Those are called trabeculae. The sinuses, you see up here some sinuses. Sinuses are hollow spouts where the fluid actually accumulates. There are actually little fibers that run through the sinuses that act like filters that trap like things that are in the lymphatic fluid as it's going through. I think that's most of the stuff to tell you on that thing.